Well, welcome. My name is Ann Miller, and I am the director of the Colorado Resiliency Office in the Division of Local Government. The COVID Recovery Funding Series is part of DOLA's biweekly local government coordination call. The series features representatives from state agencies who will provide valuable information about important funding programs that can support local governments during the recovery process as they address their local recovery priorities and strategies. Today's webinar features the Department of Local Affairs. First, you'll hear from Andy Hill, the Director of the Community Development Office in the Division of Local Government. And then you'll hear from Andrew Paredes, the Director of Housing Finance and Sustainability in the Division of Housing. As Rick mentioned, these sessions are recorded and will be posted on our website. I'll turn it over to you now, Andy.
Great, thanks, Ann. Like Ann said, my name's Andy Hill. I manage the Community Development Office in the Division of Local Government in DOLA. And we're going to talk to you today a little bit about House Bill 1271. Next slide. Thank you. Next one. So House Bill 1271 just passed recently, was signed at the end of June by the governor. And the intent behind this bill is to address the affordable housing crisis. Affordable quality housing has been an issue for decades in Colorado, but it's really turned up a few notches lately, obviously, and has become a very critical part of our recovery. So 1271 is focused on the land use component of the issue. So a lot of communities have come to us with requests for information and assistance and funding to help them look at their land use codes, plans, policies, and so on, so that they can make it a little bit easier to develop affordable housing in their communities. We all know this is challenging no matter where you are in the state. So this funding is really to help provide incentive money for the communities to award to local government, to developers who are building affordable housing, and to help local governments actually adopt some land use and process changes so that it can become easier to develop affordable housing in their communities. So it provides some resources and education and also the funding. So let's get to the details a little bit. Next slide. The statute creates 3 separate programs. The first one is almost $38 million for an incentive grant program. These grants can run anywhere from about $500,000 to $1 million to the applicant, so that the municipality or the county can spend funds on affordable housing projects in their community. But to qualify for the incentive grant program, you have to have adopted at least 3 strategies from a menu of options in the statute. We'll be working on the program guidelines for this program over the summer, and we'll have that posted by September 1st. If you as a municipality or county do not have the 3 strategies from the menu of options, you can come to the planning grant program, which will be open and available first to give you as much time as possible to qualify for the incentive grant program. So that's almost $7 million that we have to award for different planning grants so that you can adopt some of the qualifying strategies and become eligible for those incentive grant funds. In both cases, we're still finalizing all this information, and we'll be updating or posting the program guidelines for the planning program very soon, probably in the next 2 weeks. For the incentive grant, probably right before September 1st. So you can find final information soon, but we are and have been accepting input on those program guidelines. And if you have additional input to provide, please send that along to me or to Christy Wiseman, or you can send it in through CRO and they can share that with us. What we've heard so far, we were talking about a 50-50 match. We decided to reduce that down to about 25% with the ability for some flexibility for communities that will find it challenging to have 25% for match. So the planning grants, we expect to fund probably on average, $50,000 to $100,000 grants to help local governments support their planning work. And the planning work that you'll find in those qualifying strategies for the incentive grants are things that you would expect, things that we hear communities are interested in looking at, like use by right options for ADUs or density bonuses for affordable housing, maybe some streamlining or some dedicated funding source programs, things like that. So that's exciting. We're excited to be able to offer these two different grant programs, both the planning grant program and the incentive grant program. We will stagger them so as many communities as possible have the opportunity to apply for the incentives grant, but we are probably going to be holding a small incentives grant cycle at the very end of this year for maybe a very small group of projects that can serve as model projects for other communities. And that's for communities that have a project in the pipeline right now and ready to go. All the funds for this program have to be spent by June 30th of 2024. Next slide, please. So the key takeaways, for the incentive grants, it's not necessarily as simple as having 3 qualifying strategies. There's other language in the bill that talks about communities continuing to make progress and demonstrating a continued commitment to affordable housing, which frankly many communities have, especially over the last several years. So what we recommend is start talking today with your housing authority, your nonprofit affordable housing developers, and other housing advocates. Find out if your housing needs assessment is up to date enough to direct your efforts. Figure out what kinds of resources you'll need and come talk to us and let us see how we can best help you to meet those project needs that you have. Another thought, think about how you'll create an inclusive and equitable engagement process, both with the public and different stakeholders, to ensure that all the strategies that you adopt address equity. And do think about the timing, and we would love to hear any feedback from you all about the timing. It's a very fast timeline. We want to be able to give local governments as much time as possible to adopt the qualifying strategies and become very competitive for the incentive grants. But we also want to give you enough time to spend the incentive grants. So we are thinking about opening planning grants, as soon as possible, and most of the incentive grants at the end of next year. If you have concerns about that timing, please let us know. And share any other input besides timing. What other challenges do you see with this funding? What can we be doing to make it easy for grantees to spend the money quickly and effectively? And then next slide, just very high level, I'm going to just mention and make sure you all are aware of the Main Street Open for Business program. I want to hit on this, even though it's a little bit off topic, simply because this program is moving even faster. All of these funds have to be spent by next June. So that's incredibly fast. And the whole point behind this program is, we've seen in Colorado and across the nation that facade programs, investment in energy efficiency and facade in the downtowns and on main streets definitely show a pretty consistent rate of return. And so we'd like to be able to fund about $6 million will be set aside to fund municipalities, counties, and COGs to bundle up projects from their downtown or main street businesses, projects that improve facades, maybe update or improve HVAC equipment, repair roofs, doors, windows, things like that, and make energy investment projects, either energy efficiency or renewable energy. And each community can apply for up to $1 million. The objective is to create that ripple effect of investment that really supports all the businesses in the downtown, but especially the ones that invest in their businesses. That first deadline, we're looking at probably August 23rd. And if any funds remain after that first cycle, we will just have rolling availability and make awards until the funds are depleted. I think I'm at time, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, I think we'll maybe hold the questions till the end, and please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A or chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Hello to everyone. My name is Andrew Paredes. I am the Director of Housing Finance and Sustainability here at the Division of Housing in the Department of Local Affairs. Next slide, please. I want to go over where we stand currently in terms of ARP funding to the state of Colorado, specifically for housing. We have all told been allocated or gotten close to $1 billion of housing funding from the federal government through the ARP to the state of Colorado. How that has, is either in process or gotten here. $550 million came to the state or came to the state. The legislature set aside that money in essentially a trust fund. I'm kind of using that in quotes, but the legislature has created a fund where it will hold the housing dollars. They immediately appropriated $100 million of that to the Division of Housing with the mandate to get that out on the street to as many shovel-ready projects as possible, as quickly as possible. And then the remainder of those funds, $450 million, will be held until next legislative session at the earliest, to be appropriated once the legislature has had a chance to form an interim task force and subgroups to take input from local communities, stakeholders, and citizens across the state as to how best to deploy the remainder, or that $450 million. So that interim task force committee process is just about getting underway. I think the committees are being formed. They will meet probably over the remainder of the summer and early fall, and then inform the legislature through reports as the legislature convenes next January and begins to consider appropriating the rest of the housing dollars for housing development or housing promotion. On top of that, the state received $305 million of additional emergency rental assistance. I think Rick alluded to the ERAP program, or the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, that is up and running and has spent about $85 million a year to date. That money was seeded through the HR 133, or kind of the first stimulus from back in December. This additional $300 million adds to that and will be able to keep that program solvent, and we think for the long term, at least through the end of 2024, when the funds expire. Kind of in companion to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the state has also received $175 million in homeowner assistance funds, or mortgage assistance, for lack of a better term. That money was allocated as part of the ARP through the U.S. Treasury. The first $17 million has been sent to the state, and we are getting the back-end software system up and running, as well as reaching out to local nonprofits and community agencies who will be able to administer a mortgage assistance fund that's kind of companion to the current rental assistance program. So we expect the mortgage program to be up and running in August, and those two will then be able to kind of run side by side. Both renters and homeowners affected by COVID will be able to access rent and mortgage assistance going forward. The balance of that HAF money, about $157 million, we are currently working on our state plan that we will submit to the U.S. Treasury, and to gain access to the remainder of the funds. Treasury has outlined 7 to 9 eligible uses for that HAF money, everything ranging from what you would think of as kind of normal monthly mortgage assistance, all the way to down payment assistance to help underserved Coloradans and communities access home ownership, to funds to allow folks in Colorado who are currently in houses, but maybe those houses have fallen into disrepair and they can't keep up with the repairs, to be able to provide funds to make necessary repairs so that folks can continue to live in their existing housing and not be forced out of housing because of disrepair or health and safety concerns. Further on, we have gotten 1,023 emergency housing vouchers. that have been pushed out to public housing authorities to allow those public housing authorities to get folks rehoused, the most vulnerable people in our population rehoused, who are coming in through the Continuum of Cares referral network. So these vouchers will allow folks to have housing at least through 2024 and beyond. I think that the term of these vouchers runs even further than kind of the normal ARP expiration date. And finally, the state has received $66 additional million of home TBRA funds, about $42 million through the larger cities and municipalities, kind of the entitlement communities, and then $24 million through the state, through the Division of Housing, these funds to be spent focusing on folks experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, so we can prevent that from happening. Next slide, please. So in addition to all of those funds, we have kind of our normal bread and butter, housing programs that we have always worked on here at DOLA and the Division of Housing, and those resources have increased almost exponentially as well. So if you see on the left there, the fiscal year that ended 13 months ago, the fiscal year 2020, all told at DOH, we had about $20 million worth of housing development and housing creation resources to spend. In 2019, a couple of bills were passed, most notably the vendor fee, or House Bill 1245. And then last year, Proposition EE, the tobacco or nicotine tax. Those sources have just started to come online this calendar year. And so in the last fiscal year that just ended 3 weeks ago, we saw our sources increase by about $15 million because of those two bills. And we expect that in the next 12 months, they will increase again by $55 million. So we're going to go from a universe of about $20 million of housing resources at the state to $90 million over the course of 12 to 14 months. That's exciting and kind of a sea change in what we're able to do here at the state in terms of promoting housing development and affordable housing creation. We really look forward to being able to spread this money around statewide. The bulk of the new sources are state funds that allow us maximum flexibility in how we're able to deploy the money, the populations and the income bands that it can serve, and kind of where and for what property types statewide we're able to invest these resources. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I'll touch on a couple of bills that were recently signed at the legislature. Senate Bill 242 in the last session was approved. This provided $30 million to the Division of Housing to promote the acquisition of underutilized hotels, motels, and other properties for affordable housing, and most specifically to housing that can be put to use immediately for individuals experiencing homelessness or maybe at risk of homelessness. And then further, Andy Hill touched on it, but House Bill 1271 also had a bit of a smaller program. It was $1.6 million for the creation of a housing development toolkit. We really think of this as a vehicle and kind of a toolkit or a program for smaller communities who know they have a housing problem. They might not have all of the development experience within local government or within the local community to get an idea from a problem identification, we need housing, to an idea of, we have an idea for a great housing project, maybe even know where we could put it within our community, to then finding someone who can build it, finding someone who can manage it and get it leased up and keep it running, in perpetuity going forward. So this housing development toolkit will allow communities to come together through the Division of Housing to access consultants and resources to help get a problem to an idea, to a project, to actual housing, A to Z, off the ground and people housed. So that's the intent of that toolkit that we look forward to kind of rolling out at the latter part of this year. With that, I will wrap up, and as Ann and Andy said, happy to take any questions.